Every deliberate, slow movement we make is far more than a physical gesture. It is a signal to the brain, a ripple of activity that travels through circuits responsible for balance, coordination, and awareness. As we age, these circuits naturally face wear and subtle decline, yet they remain remarkably responsive to the quality of motion we offer them. When movement is rushed, fragmented, or performed without intention, the neural signals it generates are erratic and fleeting. The brain receives bursts of activity, but they lack cohesion, leaving key networks understimulated. In contrast, calm and measured movement produces synchronized, patterned activation across motor regions, sensory regions, and even the prefrontal areas involved in attention and planning. The difference is akin to the contrast between static on a radio and the clarity of a well-tuned signal. Each mindful motion resonates, reinforcing the pathways that aging often threatens to weaken. The benefits of slow, intentional movement extend beyond motor control. Our brains operate in patterns, rhythms, and oscillations, and these rhythms are highly sensitive to how we move. A simple, deliberate stretch or a carefully paced step creates a temporal rhythm that the brain can follow, entraining neural circuits to function in harmony. This entrainment improves timing, coordination, and the integration of sensory input with motor output. By moving with care and attention, we are essentially training the brain to maintain its precision, a skill that often diminishes with age. Research in neuroscience shows that the mere act of moving slowly and purposefully engages the cerebellum, the area responsible for fine motor control and balance, more effectively than rapid and coordinated motion. This engagement stimulates neurotrophic factors, the proteins that support the survival, growth, and differentiation of neurons, offering a protective effect against the natural attrition of synapses that occurs over time. Slow movement also cultivates an awareness of the body that is often lost in the rush of daily life. When we perform actions deliberately, we notice subtle shifts in weight, balance, and tension. This heightened awareness is not merely a somatic experience, it is a form of cognitive training. The brain becomes attuned to feedback loops between intention and action, learning to adjust with precision. This creates a resilience in neural circuits that governs posture, gait, and spatial awareness. As the brain strengthens these pathways, the risk of falls, injuries, and the associated cognitive stress that comes with them diminishes. In essence, the practice of calm motion is simultaneously an exercise in proprioception, balance, and cognitive alertness. The impact is cumulative and profound. Each repeated, intentional motion reinforces the same neural networks over time, creating a form of use-dependent neuroprotection. Neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable ability to adapt and reorganize, responds most robustly to patterns of consistent, mindful engagement. By choosing to move slowly, we provide the brain with rich, meaningful input, rather than scattered, chaotic signals. Every gentle stretch, every deliberate turn, every carefully placed step is an act of nurturing, reinforcing pathways that sustain both movement and cognition. The rhythm of calm motion allows the brain to anticipate, adjust, and optimize, fostering stability in the very systems most vulnerable to aging. Moreover, slow, intentional movement encourages integration across multiple systems simultaneously. Sensory feedback from muscles, joints, and the inner ear is processed in tandem with motor planning, emotional regulation, and cognitive focus. This holistic activation is more difficult to achieve during rapid, inattentive movement. In this way, calm motion not only preserves motor skills but also creates a protective scaffold for broader brain function, maintaining the delicate equilibrium between body and mind that is essential for aging gracefully and with clarity. Breath and movement are inseparable partners in the dance of human physiology, a silent dialogue that resonates from our lungs to the deepest circuits of the brain. When we move calmly, with intention and mindfulness, the rhythm of our breathing naturally follows, slowing and deepening in harmony with each gesture. This simple alignment is more than aesthetic or meditative, it has profound implications for brain health. The act of breathing deeply while moving sends a cascade of signals to the autonomic nervous system, shifting the body from the constant tension of fight or flight into the restorative, parasympathetic state. This state is marked by lowered heart rate, reduced blood pressure, and a release of stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline, chemicals that, when chronically elevated, erode neurons, constrict blood vessels, and accelerate the subtle wear of aging on the brain. Through calm, intentional motion, we create a rhythm that guides not just the body but the brain toward a state of restoration and resilience. This synergy between breath and movement also shapes the flow of blood and oxygen to neural tissue, an essential factor in preserving cognitive function. Slow, deliberate movement encourages deeper, fuller breaths, which in turn enhance oxygenation of the blood. Each oxygen-rich pulse feeds neurons that require a constant supply to maintain their delicate architecture and energetic demands. Simultaneously, calm motion promotes the gentle circulation of cerebrospinal fluid, a crucial medium for clearing metabolic waste from the brain. This circulation, subtle but continuous, helps remove compounds like beta amyloid that, if accumulated, can contribute to cognitive decline. By integrating mindful breathing with measured movement, we are not only nourishing neurons but actively supporting the brain's housekeeping systems, creating an environment in which cells can function optimally and adaptively. Beyond the purely physical benefits, the rhythm of breath intertwined with motion has a stabilizing effect on the mind itself. Calm, steady movement invites attention, drawing awareness to the body and the present moment. This attentional focus reduces the noise of rumination and anxiety, which are known to alter neural connectivity and contribute to structural shrinkage in regions like the hippocampus, a center of memory and learning. Each gentle inhalation and exhalation, synchronized with motion, reinforces networks that regulate emotion, attention, and executive function. The mind becomes less reactive, less fragmented, and more attuned to subtle cues from the environment, strengthening both cognitive flexibility and emotional resilience. The practice of moving slowly while breathing mindfully also enhances the brain's response to stress at a cellular level. Neurons, glial cells, and vascular structures are all sensitive to hormonal signals, and a body in a calm, parasympathetic state communicates safety to the brain. This reduces oxidative stress and inflammation, both of which are key contributors to neurodegenerative changes over time. The repeated experience of calm, intentional movement thus trains the brain to interpret patterns of sensation and rhythm as signals of safety and stability, reinforcing adaptive responses and protective mechanisms. Furthermore, the integration of breath with movement fosters a subtle, yet powerful, sense of agency. When motion is deliberate and breathing is intentional, we engage both conscious and subconscious processes, bridging higher-order executive regions with brainstem and spinal circuits. This integration enhances coordination, timing, and proprioception, while also creating a feedback loop of emotional regulation and neural activation. In essence, each calm motion paired with deep, measured breathing acts as a form of internal training, teaching the brain to remain steady, focused, and resilient under both physiological and psychological pressures. Calm, deliberate movements do more than engage muscles or improve balance. They create a profound dialogue between the body and the brain, one that strengthens cognitive function through heightened sensory integration. Every subtle motion, from the gentle rotation of a wrist to the careful placement of a foot, generates streams of information that travel along nerves to the central nervous system. These sensory signals provide the brain with a rich map of the body in space, a form of input known as proprioception. In youth, the brain receives this information effortlessly, but as we age, the accuracy of these signals can diminish, leading to slower reactions, decreased balance, and an increased risk of falls. Calm, intentional movements amplify the clarity of these sensory signals, reinforcing the neural networks responsible for perceiving position, orientation, and movement. Each slow, measured motion is a rehearsal for the brain, training it to anticipate, interpret, and adjust to the ever-changing demands of the body in space. This sensory-motor feedback is not merely mechanical, it engages higher cognitive processes as well. When movement is intentional, the brain must plan and predict the consequences of each action, integrating information from vision, vestibular input from the inner ear, and tactile feedback from the skin. This simultaneous processing activates regions associated with attention, memory, and executive function, creating a cognitive challenge that is both subtle and highly effective. Unlike hasty, mindless motion, calm movement allows the brain to process this information thoroughly, strengthening the connections that underlie spatial awareness, decision-making, and coordination. The repetition of these movements consolidates neural pathways, reinforcing circuits that might otherwise degrade with age, and fostering resilience in both motor and cognitive domains. Moreover, calm movements enhance the brain's capacity to adapt through neuroplasticity. When we perform deliberate, nuanced actions, we create an environment for neurons to form new synapses, adapt existing pathways, and optimize communication between regions. This is particularly important in aging, when the ability to form new connections naturally declines. Movements that challenge balance, require subtle adjustments, or involve coordination between multiple limbs provide the brain with meaningful input, stimulating areas that control attention, prediction, and sensory integration. Over time, this creates a network of well-connected, flexible circuits that maintain both movement precision and cognitive agility, allowing older adults to navigate complex environments with confidence and stability. Calm, mindful motion also strengthens the integration of sensory and emotional processes. The brain does not operate in isolation. Sensory input is always filtered through emotional and motivational networks. Slow, intentional movements create a space for awareness, reducing tension and promoting a sense of safety. This emotional calm allows sensory information to be processed more accurately, enhancing motor responses and reinforcing the perception of stability and control. By moving gently and with purpose, we cultivate both physical balance and emotional equilibrium, creating a feedback loop that protects the brain from the negative effects of chronic stress while sharpening cognitive function. Even small, everyday movements contribute to this process. A carefully placed step, a controlled bend, or a deliberate reach requires the brain to integrate multiple streams of sensory input simultaneously, engaging circuits that support memory, attention, and spatial reasoning. Each movement becomes a subtle exercise in neural resilience, teaching the brain to interpret the body's signals efficiently and respond with precision. Over time, these repeated patterns of slow, intentional movement strengthen the pathways that allow us to maintain independence, agility, and cognitive clarity well into later years, transforming ordinary gestures into a profound practice of brain preservation. The brain is not a static organ, it is a living, dynamic system, constantly adapting to the challenges we place before it. This adaptability, known as neuroplasticity, is most effectively nurtured through patterns of movement that are deliberate, intentional, and nuanced. Slow, mindful motion provides the brain with precisely this kind of stimulus. Each carefully executed action requires the brain to plan, coordinate, and execute movement while continuously integrating sensory feedback. Unlike rushed or automatic motion, calm movement offers the brain a rich landscape of data to process, stimulating neural pathways that are essential for balance, memory, and cognitive flexibility. By performing movements slowly, we allow neurons to fire in an organized, rhythmic pattern, strengthening synaptic connections and promoting the formation of new pathways that support overall brain resilience. This process is particularly critical as we age. Aging brains experience a gradual decline in the efficiency of communication between neurons, along with a reduction in the number of synapses. The practice of intentional, measured motion counteracts these effects by providing consistent, meaningful input that encourages neurons to maintain their connections. Each gentle stretch, deliberate step, or controlled reach acts as a small but powerful exercise in neuroplasticity, reinforcing the circuits responsible for coordination, spatial reasoning, and executive function. In this way, movement becomes a form of cognitive training, not just physical exercise, creating a protective effect against the subtle declines that often accompany later life. The benefits extend beyond the motor and sensory domains into higher-order cognitive processes. Slow, purposeful motion engages the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for planning, attention, and decision-making. By moving deliberately, we practice the mental discipline required to sequence actions, anticipate consequences, and adjust behavior in response to changing conditions. This ongoing activation supports mental agility, allowing the brain to remain flexible and adaptive even in the face of age-related changes. Over time, the repeated stimulation of these networks creates a more interconnected, resilient neural architecture, capable of supporting both physical coordination and cognitive performance. Furthermore, calm movement encourages integration between hemispheres of the brain. Many intentional actions require coordination between the left and right sides of the body, which in turn demands communication between the corresponding hemispheres. This bilateral engagement strengthens the corpus callosum, the bundle of fibers that connects the two halves of the brain, enhancing overall connectivity and promoting more efficient information processing. The result is a brain that is not only better able to control movement but also more capable of synthesizing sensory input, regulating emotion, and solving problems with creativity and precision. The subtlety of slow movement also allows for refinement and adaptation, key elements of neuroplasticity. When each motion is performed with attention, the brain receives continuous feedback, learning to fine-tune responses and adjust for minor deviations in balance, posture, or alignment. This ongoing adjustment reinforces learning at a neuronal level, enhancing the ability to respond to unpredictable challenges. Even everyday actions, when executed mindfully, become opportunities for the brain to practice flexibility, strengthening the connections that preserve both cognitive and motor function. Over time, these patterns of deliberate movement cultivate a form of resilience that is holistic, encompassing mind and body. The repeated activation of neural circuits through intentional motion promotes a brain that is not only structurally robust but functionally adaptable, able to respond to both internal and external demands with precision and grace. In this sense, calm movement is a practice of both preservation and growth, harnessing the natural capacity of the brain to reorganize and strengthen itself, creating a foundation for sustained health, clarity, and vitality throughout the aging process. There is an intimate connection between movement, emotion, and the brain, one that becomes increasingly important as we age. Calm, purposeful motion does more than maintain balance or strengthen muscles. It profoundly influences the neural circuits that govern our mood, emotional regulation, and stress response. Each deliberate gesture, whether a slow reach, a controlled turn, or a mindful step, sends signals through the nervous system that communicate a sense of stability and safety to the brain. This communication is subtle but powerful. The amygdala, a region central to processing emotion, responds to these patterns of movement by reducing hyperactivity often associated with anxiety, fear, and chronic stress. In this way, calm movements act as a form of emotional signaling, informing the brain that the body is secure, grounded, and in control. The physiological impact of this emotional signaling is profound. When the body and mind are in a state of calm alertness, stress hormones such as cortisol are kept in balance, rather than remaining chronically elevated as they often are in daily life. Elevated cortisol over time can damage neurons, particularly in areas like the hippocampus, which is critical for memory and learning. By engaging in calm, deliberate movement, we create repeated opportunities to regulate these hormonal responses, protecting neural tissue and supporting the long-term health of the brain. This effect is amplified by the rhythmic nature of slow, mindful motion, which synchronizes neural firing patterns and fosters a sense of internal coherence. The act of moving slowly, intentionally, and with awareness becomes a powerful tool for emotional resilience, reinforcing neural networks that support calmness, focus, and clarity. Movement also cultivates emotional awareness, another essential aspect of brain health. By performing actions deliberately, we bring attention to subtle sensations within the body, noticing tension, alignment, and effort. This awareness fosters a feedback loop between body and mind, allowing us to recognize emotional states and respond to them adaptively rather than reactively. The prefrontal cortex, which governs executive function, planning, and self-regulation, is engaged during these mindful movements, enhancing the brain's capacity to modulate responses to stress and challenge. Over time, this creates a stable emotional environment in which neurons can function optimally, supporting memory, focus, and cognitive flexibility. The integration of calm movement with emotional regulation also strengthens social and motivational aspects of brain function. When the nervous system is balanced and the mind is centered, we are more capable of engaging with others thoughtfully and responding to complex situations with composure. Neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine, which are critical for mood, motivation, and reward processing, are positively influenced by the rhythmic patterns of slow, intentional movement. The gentle, deliberate flow of motion encourages the release of these neurochemicals, creating subtle but meaningful improvements in emotional tone and resilience. This, in turn, supports the brain's overall capacity to maintain healthy circuitry, adapt to challenges, and respond with both creativity and discernment. Calm, purposeful movement also teaches the brain to tolerate subtle uncertainty and change, reinforcing adaptability at both cognitive and emotional levels. Each deliberate action requires attention, prediction, and adjustment, engaging neural networks that govern problem-solving, spatial awareness, and behavioral flexibility. These networks overlap significantly with those involved in emotional regulation, meaning that the same movements that stabilize the body also stabilize mood and cognitive performance. Through this dual engagement, slow, mindful motion acts as a bridge between physiological and psychological resilience, supporting holistic brain health in a way that is both accessible and profoundly effective. Over time, the consistent practice of calm movements cultivates a nervous system that is balanced, a brain that is resilient, and an emotional life that is steady. The integration of movement, breath, and awareness nurtures neurons, strengthens synaptic connections, and reinforces pathways that preserve memory, attention, and executive function. In doing so, it offers a form of protection against the cognitive and emotional challenges of aging, allowing the mind to remain flexible, clear, and engaged, while the body moves with both grace and purpose. If you found these insights helpful and want to continue learning practical, science-backed strategies to stay healthy, strong, and vibrant as you age, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends and family who could benefit, and subscribe to our channel for daily senior wellness tips, nutrition guidance, and simple lifestyle hacks designed to enhance longevity and quality of life. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video that can help you live healthier, happier, and more empowered every day.